Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar. I see people are still climbing on, but we'll get going in the interest of time. Once again, thank you very much for joining us for Perfect Together, integrating DocuWare with third-party applications. So today we're going to take a look at how DocuWare can integrate with third-party applications, because it's a question that we obviously get quite often. Before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. My name is David Milan. I am the Regional Sales Director for DocuWare. I cover the African and Middle East region, and of course, a lot of my colleagues covering the rest of the world. And I'm sure if you're already on this call, you know the Regional Sales Director looking after your portion of the world. A little bit of housekeeping. You'll see on the panel, on the GoToMeeting panel, there's a chat window, as you can see there, a little chat button where you can click on chat and then chat with us. Of course, this is going to be, should I call it a silent webinar, or you won't be able to ask questions directly. But if there's any questions, I welcome them in the chat area. So please post your questions there, and I will see your questions as they come in, of course, and I will cover the questions at the end of the call. Okay, so today we're going to talk obviously about integrations and a little bit of an agenda for you before we start chatting about integrations, what type of different integrations we have. We're going to take a look at some live examples, so some demo environments that I've set up for that specific reason. We're also going to take a brief look at specific strategic partners and integrations that we have, and then we'll go through some information where you can get more information on the website on the content. So to start off with seamless collaboration, of course, for any content management or document management system to be successful, you need it to be seamlessly integrated with other applications. Now, there's lots of people on the call today. Some of you might be very advanced and technical. Some of you might be within the sales division currently selling DocuWare, and some of you, of course, will be our customers that are interested in what the integration possibilities are with DocuWare. So today we're going to take it from the beginning right through to the end, of course, not in detail. We only have a certain amount of time, and we're going to take a look at what do we answer to that integration question? What is possible out of the box, standard in DocuWare, and what is, of course, possible through our API? So we want to make sure that we can cover a broad base of applications rather than specifically integrate with only specific applications. So let's take a look at the different type of integrations that we have. So many of you will know this slide if you've been on lots of DocuWare webinars and presentations. Then you'll be familiar with the slide. It's the standard slide where we share what is possible from an integration perspective. Now we're going to go in a little bit more detail into this on the next slide, but you can see that we try to cover the things that is generally used. So Microsoft Outlook here on the left-hand side, Windows Explorer, Microsoft SharePoint, Exchange, IMAP, mailboxes, those kind of things we connect to automatically. And then, of course, I want to integrate there on the top with my ERP system, but what methods do we have in our basket to integrate with those ERP systems, CRM systems, or payroll systems out there? And then, of course, my hardware devices, smartphones, tablets, desktop scanners, multifunction printers, and so forth. And then, of course, specialized integration into databases, SAP, for instance, or other ERP applications. So if we can put the three integration options that we have on the table and list them, the general and universal or plug-in integrations that we have available is, of course, our printer, monitored folder, smart connect application, database synchronization, external select lists, connect to mail, the scan application, and URL integration. This is what is listed under standard integrations. We're going to go into a little bit more detail into most of them. I want to pause 1 second. Can somebody just send me a message if all of the attendees, if you guys can hear me clearly, see me clearly? I guess I should have asked this before the time. Just like pop a note in there. if you can hear me clearly, please. Slightly concerned at the moment because nobody's popping a note. Anybody just pop a note into the chat section if you can hear me. Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys. We've covered the general integration options. Then integration with special modules. So this is now a specific application, right? So not a DocuWare module specifically, but a specific application. So we can integrate with the Explorer client to show the folders. We're going to briefly look at that today. The Microsoft Outlook app, of course, SharePoint, SAP, connect to multiple multifunction devices out there, which is at the moment developed by our multifunction partners. And then through programming things become a little bit more interesting. The Docuware URL integration, once again mentioned here, because that of course can be specialized integration. We can do development through the platform or .NET API, and we can do validation of index entries to databases. And then also fitting in here is our web services integration to be able to publish to existing web services. And we'll take a look at that in a bit more detail as well. So let's step through these integrations. And sorry for the guys that's very advanced and technical. The first couple of slides might bore you a little bit. So the Docuware printer, and everybody should know the printer if you've worked with Docuware before. Of course, for our customers that's on the call, maybe it's the first time that you see it and what is possible. So the Docuware printer is a virtual printer. Call it a PDF printer on steroids. Something that can fetch information of a document and then do intelligent actions with that document. So I need to be able to integrate with a printer because a lot of content is printed, not scanned, not imported. So I want to be able to integrate that, of course, giving me the ability to integrate with any application that wants to integrate documents into Docuware, as long as there's a printer on a Windows environment or an environment where I can implement a printer on the Windows environment. Of course, that is possible, and also implement it as part of the Docuware desktop apps. Now, let's take a look at it. So, yeah, I've got a Docuware environment set up, of course, and yeah, you can see, and let me actually go to a different user. You can see I'm logged in here as Peggy Jenkins. Peggy Jenkins is the finance administrator within my finance department. And Peggy already she's got a list here, and I'm not going to go into the details, of course, of all of the functions of Docuware, but she's got a list that's reporting to her on all the unsigned delivery notes that has been generated. I can see that it's unsigned delivery notes. The status of these documents are new. Of course, I can view them within the Docuware viewer. If I go to my ERP application, so I've got a basic ERP application here at the bottom, I can see, however, that for delivery notes that has an invoice, there's currently 5 available. So one of them has not been printed. Very briefly back, I've got delivery notes 1 to 4, and within my ERP system, I have 5 delivery notes. So I want this 5th one still to be printed. I've currently got it open on the screen. So I open up the delivery note, I click the print button. Now, lots of ERP systems, of course, work different with the print button. I'm using a simple type of mail merge application here to generate my delivery note for me based on data. And I can now print this document. I've tested it a million times and I still look for the print button. So there is my print button, and I'm, of course, printing to the Docuware printer. So the Docuware printer at the back is going to convert this document for me into a PDF, extract information off the page, and store it in Docuware. But of course, I want to take a look at how it works practically. Now I can see that the document will come in within a second or two. There we go. I can see the desktop apps have now finished generating the document, and there it is now available within my list. For the technical people, how simple is this to set up? I'm within my Docuware configuration. I click on the document processing button. These things take a second or two to open up. There I've got my unsigned delivery notes configuration. I can see that it is a printer configuration. I open that up. I have defined a sample document, which was one of my delivery notes that I've printed. I have defined a target for the store dialog. It should store it within my document pool file cabinet. I can do specific actions here, like print out the document to a printer as well. Potentially select a printer based on the type of document. For example, for this delivery note, it should print out in the warehouse where people need to do the picking. So those kind of things can also be configured. I can email them out or even add an electronic signature to the page. Within the processing section, I can now define what data it is that I want to fetch off the page. And this works exactly the same for our scanning applications and our printing applications to fetch information off the page of a standard form, of course. And I can see that, for instance, the company name was sent to company name and the document number to document number. So jumping back to Docuware, of course, the document with the data that I have defined that should be exported or should be read from this document, clearly visible on the screen. Okay, done with the printer. Simple enough. Any Windows-based application I can print from. I can define to extract index data. And of course, the printer can also identify what it's printing based on numerous criteria. So powerful indeed, but very, very basic and simple. So back to our presentation. The next thing that I want to take a look at is Smart Connect. It's one of the things that we've mentioned up front. So Smart Connect is an application that, or part of the Docuware module, that gives me the ability to link Windows-based applications to Docuware, or vice versa. I might want to read text of a Windows-based application and publish that into Docuware, or I might just want to open up documents from a third-party application. In fact, Docuware also has a new function available within Smart Connect that was released with version 7.3 that gives me the ability to highlight any text on any document or any application and simply use a shortcut key to open those documents in Docuware, giving the user the ability or the function not to have to go into Docuware and search for documentation if they quickly want to see if something is available. Of course, the highlight search, very powerful to find anything that I'm looking for. So a little bit more on the highlight search, simply set up in the configuration. We'll briefly take a look at that now. I can define what I want to search for, very basic configuration, takes about 2 minutes to set up. And I can define what I want to see once I search. A little bit more on the Smart Connect functionality. We're going to take a look at that now. I can take screenshots of applications that Docuware should identify and automatically add these little buttons that you see on top to the screen. I can define where it should find this information on the page based on an anchor, and then it could open the documents up in Docuware. Okay, so let's take a look at how it works. So I have my configuration once again. And within my configuration, we're going to go back to the main configuration page. And we're going to click on Smart Connect here at the bottom left. Now, I've got a couple of configurations set up. We'll quickly go through one or two of them. Let's firstly take a look at the highlight search, the new search functionality within Docuware. So there I've got, my mouse just disappeared on me. There I've got assigned POD, highlight search. I can see is the type. I can open that up. This is incredibly difficult to set up, guys. Which file cabinet do I want to search? What search dialog do I want to use? What is the index field that I want to search for? And what is the shortcut that I want to define? I set it up for the first time this morning, and it took me a full 15 seconds. Very difficult. So I can define, of course, the number that I want to search, and I can define which users in my organization should have access to this dialog. Before we take a look at how it works, let's go back and let's take a look at a normal search configuration. So I've got a POD search configuration here, and the search configuration, I defined a screenshot of the application that I want to search from, which is in this case, my ERP application. We'll open it up just now. And in my search identification, I define how do I identify to add the buttons. Docuware must know, oh, I see something. Same as what we do for page identification, for screen identification. Where should I apply myself? So the screenshot plus the fact of the title of the application, in this case, it could be specific text on the page as well, defines then the identification. And then when I click on search, I have to find that it should search for the delivery note number here, and the delivery number should search from the document number field within Docuwe. Once again, simple configuration plus permissions. Let's take a look at it. Here is my Windows application, which is my ERP system, which we call Factorama here at Docuwe. And it automatically applied those 4 buttons to the page. Now, interestingly, if I close this application, and I open it up again, you'll notice that the buttons are not immediately visible. So they're not visible. And a moment later, they appear. Clearly not part of the application. The application does not even know that the button exists. It's merely driven by the Docuwe desktop apps. So I now want to look at this delivery note that I printed. So there's my delivery note. You'll remember from the configuration that I was looking at this area of the page when I built the configuration. So there's my POD search button that I created during my configuration. I click the button, it executes a live search into Docuwe, and it displays the documentation in question. I can have an option here to always show me a result list, or if there's only one document, display the document in question. So now it's like literally storing these documents into the ERP system. Although I did not do that, I didn't have to manually attach the documents into the ERP system, which is brilliant integration as part of the Docuwe printer, or indeed as part of standard Docuwe scanning or intelligent indexing scanning into Docuwe that can create these automated links to the accounting system to retrieve relevant information. Very powerful, once again, yet very simple and basic. Now let's take a look at one other option. I've got here some folders. If I minimize all of the nonsense on my screen, yeah, I've got, and I don't want to use those. I want to use these. So here I've got some delivery notes. No, not those delivery notes, internal delivery notes. Yeah, I've got already my signed delivery notes already came back. Okay, I haven't scanned them yet, but here they are. So it's a signed delivery note based on what I've received. If I want to search for something, I can literally highlight text. Now that's quite funny because I can't, because I don't have Adobe on the machine. So let's use Factorama and select that text. Now I don't have to click the button anymore because I can select the text on a Word document, on a PDF document, on anything else. I've added the shortcut button Control S, so I click Control S on my screen, immediately executes the live search into Docuwe and opens up the relevant documentation. We'll scan them just now and then we'll take a look at what the actual effect was within Docuwe. Okay, I don't see any questions coming through yet. Brito, that's on the call with me. If there's any, would you just pop them through to me? If there's any questions, of course, guys, please feel free to post them. All right, so back to our presentation. And the next thing that we want to take a look at is import. I kind of split them up because I wanted the flow within the presentation to make sense. Normally, I would show import with a printer because it works in a very similar way. The one prints with a printer and the one scans with a scanner. But the effect within Docuwe, the identification of the document and the extracting of the metadata or index criteria from the document is still exactly the same. So the import functionality now also works with the Docuwe printer and can import documents either from a scanner or from a folder. So it makes it very simple for me to get index documents into Docuwe, whether I scan them from a scanner, drop them into a folder, scan them to a folder for that matter, and index the documents and initiate any workflows on them that I want to do. We'll take a look at that in just a second. The next thing that I want to mention, because I'll show you all of this live, like in one shot, is Docuwe's order index. Now, order index is most probably, if I really have to rate it, our second or third best integration tool that we have available to us in Docuwe. I can connect Docuwe through order index with just about any external database available. As long as I can create an ODBC connection, or it's a SQL database, an Oracle database, I can connect Docuwe to that database to fetch or indeed send information to this database. Now, very true, this is not possible in all ERP systems to write directly to the ERP systems database. Data corruption is something that needs to be considered. So normally the writing of the data is not allowed. But we're going to go through the order index configuration and briefly take a look at what is the options that is available within order index. For those ERP systems or accounting systems, or CRM systems, where we cannot write directly to the database, we have the ability to post web services. And the web services are very simple. We just communicate with the web service and we post certain data that can be automated through the Docuwe workflow engine. So where I can write data directly to the database, simple to do with either the workflow engine or with order index, or I can write the data directly through a web service, which also allows me to automatically index information and also ensure that there's data consistency between the data within DocuWare and the data within my ERP system. So let's take a look at a live example. Sorry, I'm just answering a question there to the organizers. Right, so I've got my delivery notes here in my folder. And now I want to scan documents. So let's take a look at the configuration before we scan them. Once again, I'm going to my document processing. I'll do this very briefly because it's very similar to the printer. And within my processing environment, I also have a scan environment set up. So that is the wrong system, apologies. So document processing once again. There's my unsigned delivery notes printer we looked at now. Now I've got a folder configuration for signed delivery notes. So I am going to scan my delivery notes, which I've showed you that I've already received, to a folder, and I want Docuwe to pick them up there and index them for me. Once again, sample document, my choice once again, scan a folder or printer configuration. Where I want to scan my document to, my processing where I've indexed the document or even split the document, added letterheads and so forth. Automatic indexing is also possible here. Now you'll see in this example, and deliberately, I fetched only one index field off the page. If I wanted to ensure if the data moved, I could easily have created an anchor for the delivery note word and said that the text must also always fetch it from this anchor, ensuring that if data moves on the page, the Docuwe will still be able to find it. And of course, then my permissions. So simple configuration, the same as the printer configuration. Let's also take a look at the order index configuration, because the way that I built my order index configuration is to immediately activate once I scan documents. So a user doesn't have to do it. It doesn't have to run on the schedule. It happens immediately as the documents come in. So I've got two here. We want to focus on the signed POD one. Now, of course, for those of you that knows this specific demonstration, I'm using order index in this case to find the other version of the document, the unsigned copy of the version of this document, and update both, that I have matched them and that my customer has actually signed my delivery note. So simple example. My trigger for this order index is a file cabinet event when a new document comes in and the document type is assigned delivery note. So very simple. From a match data perspective is where it becomes interesting. I can connect to an external database, as already mentioned, the ODBC database, ERP system database, to fetch information or push information to this database. I can read a text file, like a CSV file, for instance, for data. I can connect to a file cabinet database, which is what I'm doing now. And then, of course, I can also use fixed index entries to update data for a specific document as it comes in. In my case, of course, I connected to a file cabinet, which is also the document pool, but here I'm looking for unsigned delivery notes where the status is new. So I'm writing to an internal database, but the action is exactly the same. In this example, I want to match the document numbers. So if the one is signed and the one is unsigned and the document number is the same, I want action to happen. I want to look at only one record And if it can't find the document, I just wanted to write there no DN or no delivery note so that I know that the printed document is actually missing, which should never happen, but we want that kind of reporting. And in my assigned data, I have assigned the data that I want to assign to the document. And then I also wanted to update and write back that it has matched the document. So I want to change the status for both documents to matched. So basic configuration. Okay. So back to Docuware. I now want to capture my signed delivery notes. So for that reason, I have a folder just on my desktop called POD, and Docuware is monitoring this folder through the desktop apps. And I'm going to copy these documents as if I am scanning them to a folder. Popping them in there, Docuware, of course, monitoring that folder, picking up the documents and starting to process them. I can open up the desktop apps and I can see that the 5 documents are currently being OCR'd, optical character recognition, text extracted off the page and stored in Docuware, the first one already stored. So going back to Peggy, I can already see that the unsigned delivery notes is closing. I can see that the signed delivery notes has also closed. And if I now click on my match documents, although I have indexed only this index entry, even by the time that I got to my lists, and I was actually hoping I'd get to that earlier so that I can show you how the data updates, it has moved the documents to signed and to matched in one swoop because it automatically matched all the delivery notes together. So one action in a couple of seconds, import the documents from a folder, integration into the folder or to a scanner, and then I automatically update information potentially from the ERP system, in my example, to an internal database, but potentially from the ERP system, showing me the integration possibility between Docuware Auto Index or Docuware Workflow Engine for this matter, and of course the database. Now I have got some questions. And I'll handle some of them. If too many comes in, then I'll continue handling them at the end of the presentation. So will there be a connection to Canon printers? Well, yes. Firstly, Canon printers can scan to a folder, so quite easy for us to do folder integration with a Canon device. I also stand under correction, and if you want to please pop me an email, because I don't know who asked these questions, I'm just getting them from the organizer. But if you want to pop me an email afterwards and ask me specific questions, I can check for you or find out about Canon integration. But many printer providers are now developing applications for Docuware. As we do not do this anymore, the technology changes and the printer manufacturers are quite happy to do this development themselves. Question, does the Docuware printer work on Mac OS? Well, I've got a funny answer and I've got a straight answer. I'm on a Mac and it's working. But of course, I'm running a virtual environment. Unfortunately not. The Docuware desktop apps is currently not supported on Mac OS and in Windows environments. Another question here, and this is actually a good question. Does Smart Connect work on terminal server? Smart Connect can work on terminal server if I've got exact resolution between my server and my client. So the short answer is actually no, but the highlight search will work 100% fine. The reason why it won't work is because the resolution shifts between the terminal server and the server, and the buttons that we're adding to the page, where it reads on the page, then becomes a big problem. So in most cases, setting up a terminal server, if you're very exact with your resolutions, it is possible to work, but it's not a very neat solution. I would most certainly suggest a highlight search for a terminal server environment. In document processing configuration, the sample document template is only available for PDF file types. Yes, this is correct. Our printer configuration, of course, converts a document to a PDF, so there's no issue there. I can print anything to the printer, and it would actually convert it to a PDF and store that in Docuware. But at the moment, our processing for folder configurations and for scanner configurations, for that matter, is PDF if only. And a Smart Connect will work on a web application? Absolutely. As long as you open that web application in a web browser on a Windows environment, then you can absolutely use Smart Connect on any web application. It works in Outlook. It works even with a Word document. If you have specific identification criteria that Smart Connect can open on, then it will work perfectly fine in a web application or the like. All right. Thank you for those questions. I will field a couple of questions again later as they come in. Right, so we have now seen order index, we've seen the import configuration, and before we go back to the presentation, I want to jump to another environment here and quickly show web services. Now, this is an incredibly important topic, except if you're a qualified Docuware systems consultant that has used web services before, this area should be quite interesting for you. Now, in this environment, I have now jumped away from the accounts receivable and from the delivery notes for a moment, and I'm now focusing on an accounts payable environment. I've already done a search in my accounts payable environment for documents that I have. Pertinent here is the delivery note and the purchase order for the company called US Steel. The delivery note and the purchase order exactly match each other. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm obviously creating a perfect environment in this case. Right, so now I want to go to my trays. I have already scanned an invoice. Here is an invoice. I actually didn't scan it. You can see it's an email with an attachment. So it came in automatically from Microsoft Outlook or from a mail server that I connected to, which is two things that I won't show you today, Outlook and connect to email. That is, of course, also possible. So this is actually a PDF clipped to an email exactly as it came in. And this example here doesn't have to be a PDF because it's getting read by Docuware's intelligent indexing system. It was not scanned. It does not have to be a PDF. We can read that information of Word documents, Excel documents, TIFFs, JPEGs, whatever the case may be. So I want to store this document with intelligent indexing. Hopefully most of you have seen it, otherwise you'll get horribly excited. But of course, I'm not here for introducing intelligent indexing, of course, today. I can see that my indexing is not correct. So I want to, oh, it is correct. My apologies. Yeah, so I've read this table of the document, my amount, I've got my comments in there, and I've got some specific header information. So once the document is indexed, of course, intelligent indexing knows it perfectly. It has already read all the information from me off the page. So I can just click on store. Now, within Docuware, once again, a little bit of list functionality. Hopefully, Docuware will now match this invoice to my purchase order and then automatically close my purchase order as it hits the system. There we go. Thank heavens that happened. Then I want to jump directly to my tasks, which is, of course, now a Docuware workflow that's running. And the Docuware workflow has automatically pushed this document to completion for me. So I skipped a couple of steps because everything matched. And in this environment, I can now view all of the data within the Docuware workflow that is in my table. I can also view, of course, any information. Now, before I publish this, I want to quickly go to my configurations and go to web services. Once I publish this document, I want to publish all of the data to this booking export web service that I've set up. So I set it up in here. I simply connect to my web service and any authentication that is required. Also jumping to my workflow. And guys, I'm going through this very quickly. Please contact your regional sales director if you have any specific questions around everything that I'm showing you. I, of course, cannot show you all of the functionality in this call. I'm jumping through all of the integrations to show you what is possible. And for the sales guys on the call, we get the question often. Can I integrate with X, Y, and Z? Can I integrate with Sage? Can I integrate with Pastel? Can I integrate with Sage 300, Sage X3, whatever the case may be? My answer is always, why? What do you want to do? You want to print a document? Do you want to fetch data? You want to open the document? You want to push data through the websites? No problem at all. But of course, very specific integration is also possible and we'll handle that. Then one step here in my workflow, won't go through the entire workflow. I can now publish to that specific web service that I have configured, and I can publish specific data to that web service. So it could be a web service that is written for the purpose to write to a database, or it could be a web service that the ERP system or CRM system already have in place. I want to be clear, I'm of course not writing to a web service that posts to an ERP at the moment. I'm writing to a web service that we've developed ourselves, and this web service will basically generate a CSV file for me based on the data. Also a great use case for integration. So back to my Docuware environment, I now need to complete some things here on my table because I've got some required fields here. So I need to do GL coding. So I think it's job materials. makes the most sense here. I can, of course, pre-fill this, not a workflow session this, but of course, lots of options to pre-fill this type of information, even learn this information. I need to assign cost centers. It's another requirement of the task. So I'm just going to assign general administration to all of them. There we go. I'll make a little bit more space here for myself. And I cannot publish this yet because my amounts does not match my amounts. So I need to create a new entry here. I actually need to add the taxes because it wasn't a line item. I'll do the same code. And in fact, it's the wrong amount, but I can click on the document easily. It's the wrong amount. And I also want to add freight because that was also an item here at the bottom. I want to add freight to the same cost center, and Docuwe is calculating the remaining amount for me. I clicked on it before the time, but there we go. And now I can confirm my task. Because my totals now match, the task closes automatically. Now, of course, my document is going through the workflow. The workflow's got some requirements. It's checking totals, make sure that it's correct depending on what I want to do. And then hopefully in a couple of seconds in this list, there it is already, I have now created a CSV file. I've actually exported it to an FTP site and imported it back into Docuwe just for demo purposes. But if I download this document, if I can find the button today, there we go, in its original format, you can see that it's a CSV file, which should open quite easily in my Excel. And there you can see the export file that was created based on this data. Even with all the nonsense that I'm speaking, even though I had some required fields, it happened quite instantly. And I even export the notification of the document should I want to open it from the ERP system and I don't want to use the Smart Connect functionality. So of course, very, very powerful functionality for integration. I'm going to field a couple of questions again. There's a question specifically about Microsoft Dynamics and specialized applications. We do have specialized partner integrations for those applications. As Docuware, we in fact integrate with Dynamics 365 ourselves. And we do not use partner integration for this. We just use the standard tools within Docuware, database rights and web services to accomplish this for us. And we do it in bi-directional way. Documents that's uploaded into the CRM system is automatically synchronized to Docuware, and Docuware becomes the host of these documents. So yes, it is possible. Yes, we have specialized integration with our partners for Dynamics, Sale Professional, I don't know. But there is some of these applications that we have specialized integrations for. But in most cases, I've done numerous projects myself with Dynamics 365 where no specialized integration was used for the integration into Dynamics. I hope that answers the question. So there's a question here, is there any capability of Docuware to take data from a filing cabinet with inside of Docuware, a file cabinet field, and then invoke a target API? So an ERP system, for example, where we are passing the data through. For example, an invoice comes in and we take the invoice reference and push it to that API that does something with it. Now, we've done similar things, but I would use a web service for that, quite simple. Because I have a target API, it's already written. It's more than likely a web service. And this web service would publish specific information. So yeah, we've done many things like this. How to recognize the title of Windows in a web browser? It comes back to the Smart Connect work in the web browser. It can take a look at the URL of the web browser, or I can identify it by specific text on the page. If specific text appear in a specific location on the page or something like that, I can also make Smart Connect work. But of course here, the highlight search will work irrelevant of what the window is. There's a question here about what happens if the DN does not match data within the database or in the internal file cabinet. Will auto index run again after for the user to correct it? Not the auto index configuration that I have created. The auto index configuration I have created only works if there's new documents. But I can set it up if there's an index change to check again, or I can just run a schedule on another auto index task to check it again later if the criteria hasn't changed So I could, for example, in my example, I changed it to specific data, and then every hour or every 10 minutes, I can to look at all of the documents with those data to check if they have now been fixed. So yeah, quite easy to set that up. I'll field one more. There's a couple more, but I won't get to them just now. So it's asking here a technical question about how do we organize the databases on our server. Sorry, this thing jumps the whole time, then I've got to go back. Is one database instance for all customers, or customers have dedicated databases assigned to them? So of course, the question I'm assuming is relevant to our cloud environment. We do have an on-premise and a cloud environment, so we're quite flexible. You can, of course, create your own private cloud environment with your own server, with your own database and everything else. Within our cloud environment, we make use of Azure SQL. And Azure SQL is specifically configured for public cloud environments, which means that the data is completely segregated within Azure SQL, completely separate from other customers' data. So the question is actually quite relevant around the functionality of Azure SQL rather than an SQL server. So we know we do not set up just tables within one database that is potentially accessible by other customers, because Azure SQL manages this for us. All right, I will continue with additional questions. I see there's more. Thank you, but I just want to ensure that we finish the webinar before I handle any other questions. Okay, so we've taken a look at web services, we've taken a look at order index, and I am now continuing to URL integration. Now, URL integration is awesome. It's brilliant, and I mean it is fairly simple to configure. I've had interesting phone calls from systems consultants that couldn't set it up, but literally once you understood it the first time, then it's quite easy to do. It's very simple to set up, it's very comprehensive, and it's very versatile. There's loads of options within the URL integration. I can set up iframe within another application on the portal to view all of my tasks for the day, for instance. I can have a link that I create on my desktop, simply double click to see all of the outstanding delivery notes for tomorrow. I can have a URL link created for specific customers, and even dynamically, not with the URL integration tool, but dynamically, when a document is sent out, to add a link to an email for customers to access certain information securely within our Docuwe environment. So the URL integration is brilliant. The link that I've created in my previous example with the web services, the link that I created in the web service to the location of the document is generated by the Docuwe URL creator. So the URL creator is literally there to give me access to certain components or certain views within Docuwe, or download a document out of Docuwe, very versatile, in one click, rather than to let the users having to search for all of the information. Before I show you an example of URL, quickly discuss our API or our REST interface. And of course, I'm not showing this to you. I'm not a developer. I can't show it to you, but I know how it works. So everything within Docuwe, everything within the Docuwe viewer is designed with our API. So if we click the search button, it's a call to the API. If we use a link, it's a call to the API. The print button is a call to the API. So those actions can be called through a different API application. Now, an example is a bulk import of information that I wrote a small API application to pick up documents from a folder and import that into Docuwe. I'm going to show you an example of development by a partner later, where they took API application to the next level by having an API application communicate to a third-party application that's doing validation and then posting information into different areas. So the API conversation is, of course, very broad. But the only important point here is the API open to develop on. Yes, it is. All of the calls within the API is available, which means that I can do specialized actions through the API if that is required. And it's basically all I can say about the API, but it is available should we be in a situation where our standard tools just do not cut it in those rare environments. Right, let's take a look at the URL creator. And I'll do this quickly because we've been going for quite some time. Just want to minimize some things here, and I want to open this Word document that I have, and I'll explain what's going on there in just a second. And as part of my Docuwe desktop apps, the Docuwe URL creator was created. Now I want to create a URL so that I can post a link on my desktop to all of my open delivery notes. Simple example, right? We've been covering it the whole time, but we'll see some of the options in the URL creator. So it's an integration URL. I want to connect to my Docuwe system. So in my Word document, I've just copied and pasted in there to save some time. So that's the URL to my cloud environment. Could of course be an on-premise environment. I want to use a passphrase for additional security. This passphrase I got directly from the Docuwe administration, so easy to find, but of course only accessible to the administrator. I want to include credentials in the URL. So it could be a user. I'm going to use the administrator in this case, but it could be a user with limited functionality. But I am of course now gonna encrypt this URL, so the login information is not available to the user that's got the link. My email address is my username and my password. Click next. So here's all of my different integration options for the URL creator. I've got viewers, result list, and viewers, and so forth. So what I want to do is I want a result list and viewer. As you can see, I can even take a look at sent requests and document relations, documents that links that's related to a document or whatever the case may be. I want to retrieve a result list and a viewer. I'm just going to call it POD. It's my POD list. Then I've got a GUID of the file cabinet where this document is, the documents that I'm looking for is residing. I've got a search dialog GUID for the search dialog that I want to use in this case. I can do a specific document ID, or I can do a free query, save time. I've already written the query for us. And there is the free query that I want to do. Literally, the document type must be delivery note signed, and the statements must be matched. So I want to look at all of the documents that was matched, right? And it must be signed. Next, there's my URL. Simple, done. Open it up. It didn't create, it created the URL, but it didn't really create the URL. It already exists. It already exists. It is already available. The builder just helped me to build it so that I don't have to build it manually. And there's a list of all of my delivery notes, simple and available. Quite easy to do. Could literally be a link that I'm sending once a day or a link that I'm opening once a day to view all of these relevant documents. Great. And back to my live demo. Docuware Explorer client. I'm not going to show demos on this. I will explain this. I think we're running out of time and there's still a couple of questions. The Docuware Explorer client is part of the Docuware desktop apps. It gives me the ability to view the folder structure that I've created in Docuware directly in Explorer. This is for the lady that has been working there for 50 years and she doesn't want to do it different. I'm sorry, I said ladies, the people that worked there for 50 years that literally doesn't want to change. I've used the folder structure in Windows Explorer my whole life and I want to continue using that. And Docuware is dynamically updating that folder structure. Of course, the folder structure, as some of you might know, is available within the web client or directly within the Explorer client. What is awesome about this Explorer client is that it gives me the ability to store information in an automated way directly to Docuware, even if it's the cloud. So if I have documents stored within a specific folder within the Windows Explorer client, then it automatically uploads that information with relevant index data directly to Docuware, giving me a huge advantage as to automatically storing information from third-party applications or users that is literally just storing a Word document into Docuware into a specific folder. So quite powerful. The connect to mail and connect to Outlook functionality, which I've mentioned, I also won't show. As part of the desktop apps, we integrate with Microsoft Outlook, which gives me the ability to monitor folders within Outlook so that I can automatically import documents that hit that folder. Now, it's quite great, especially if I know that I always receive this type of document from the same sender or the same information in the subject line, and I want to automatically import that information into Docuware. I don't even have to drag and drop it. I can literally create a rule with an Outlook that moves it to that folder and automatically imports the information into Docuware. I can also easily right-click on a document and store a document into Docuware based on certain configurations, giving me the ability to mind blow something out of project management or automatically storing invoices from suppliers. Also available is the connect to mail functionality that gives me the ability to connect to Microsoft Exchange or IMAP servers to automatically import all emails hitting that server, all emails based on certain requirements, giving me the ability to store only the attachment, for instance, same as with Outlook, or the attachment first, the email first, and with all of the header information from the email as you wish to import it. Right, so of course, gives me the ability to automatically store it, saving me a huge amount of time, and also giving me the ability to even store information directly from my mobile device in the case of email. Okay, I'll skip that one. Quite simple functionality. The next one I very briefly want to discuss is connect to SAP. And within different areas of the world, this is very important. SAP is the only ERP system that DocuWare runs the integration to SAP. So all of our other integrations is specific partner integrations, and they are available on our website. With SAP, this is a DocuWare module that gives me the ability to integrate with SAP due to complexity of the SAP system. In short, with SAP, we can create objects within SAP automatically that links to the information within DocuWare, and we can also synchronize master data records, meaning that I can retrieve information from SAP or post information to SAP based on certain requirements. One example is, yes, I've received the signed delivery note back. Yes, you can issue the invoice. And in this example, based on the question that we had earlier, we can automatically kick off workflows within SAP based on data that we update within the database. There's a lot of specialized functions available within this module as well, like integrity checks between data between SAP and DocuWare, transferring master data that I've already mentioned, and transferring complete data sets from SAP to DocuWare or vice versa. So quite a powerful functionality, and of course very powerful in things like HR to synchronize HR records, accounts receivable, synchronizing things like delivery notes, and accounts payable by automatically linking the supplier information and even the extracted text of the supplier information directly with SAP. So quite powerful from that perspective. I'm going to field a couple more questions as they keep coming in. There's a question here. I'd like to be honest. Is Asmx supported as a web service? I don't know. I'm not technical enough for that one. I'm sorry, but we'll field the questions afterwards from who it was, and I'll make sure that the question is answered. There's a question here, did I just demo exporting the line items line by line from the invoice to a CSV file using a web service? Yes, that is what I did. I exported all of the line items of the invoice and additional data. So if you collect additional data during the workflow, that can also be exported. Can the table fields be exported to an ERP system via a web API? Yes, the table fields can be exported. If I'm going to export it, yeah, it's standard, it's possible. We've done it in many different ways through web services API, or the index writing the line items to a different file cabinet, whatever the case may be. There's possibility to do this. Is the web services meant for demonstration purposes only, or can customers use it? No, that's part of our cloud environment. If you start a Docuwe Kinetic solution, or you purchase Docuwe and use the Docuwe invoice processing Kinetic solution, the web service is available to you. It's running in our cloud environment. It's available. Another question, how secure is the web service when you set up a call from Docuwe to the cloud? It's only basic authentication or HTTPS. No, it's absolutely HTTPS. If I need to authenticate on the web service through a secure SSL layer, then that is completely possible. We do tokens in our current web service, so it's not authenticated. You have a specific token that you have to pass to use the web service. But yeah, SSL is of course supported. Okay. Can you use the URL shortcut to drive reports? Yeah, you can use it through the workflow engine. So if there's specific reports or lists that you want to export, you can drive a specific URL through to send an email through the workflow engine, if that makes sense. That is possible. There's another question here that I'm not sure of the answer. Does DocuWare have SAP API integration? I kind of want to say yes, I believe so, but I'm a little bit, I don't know. I just went brain dead or something. I can't remember. It's a question that I'll answer afterwards. Okay. If you want to do batch imports of documents into Docuwe, use the API, what volumes is possible, and that the API file can upload. Is 1,000 documents an hour having an impact on document performance in the API? No, not at all. 1,000 documents an hour you can do with the desktop apps. Honestly, I've heard people say that it takes a very long time through the desktop apps. Must be your internet connection, must be because you were trying to OCR 300 pages at the same time. But if you're doing it through the API, you're not even doing OCR of the document. OCR can take a very long time. Fetching information off the page can take a very long time. But uploading information without OCR, you can do 300,000 documents an hour through the desktop apps, even more. I can't recall exactly what the guys tested, but yeah, huge information. I've got a customer that uploads through the API millions of documents an hour sometimes. So it's through to an on-premise environment. So yeah, 1,000 documents an hour is really not a problem. The desktop apps will handle that in minutes. There's a question here. Do you know if Windows client will be available for Apple? Can use the Outlook client on the Apple environment? Unfortunately not. Yeah, I run a virtual environment. It's permanently running on my Mac. So if I want to do the integration with Outlook and things like that, it's permanently running on my Mac. What's quite awesome about something like Parallels or now the other one left my mind, but I use Parallels. What's awesome about Parallels is that you run it in an integrated way on your Mac and you don't even see the windows. So that's quite cool, which means that theoretically it works, but you do need Parallels. And of course, a more powerful Mac because you're running a virtual environment that you can run very lean to be able to do something like that. So you want to do there's a question about specific integration to add extra functionality to the Docuwe UI. That's unfortunately not possible. So the API is completely open, but the interface that we wrote is not. So you can't change our interface. We have many partners that wrote brand new interfaces for specific specialized environments like doctors that they created tabs and so forth. So those kind of things have often been done. But unfortunately, I cannot add a different functionality to the current Docuwe UI. That is not possible. The question here is, if a customer do not have web services and only have traditional API program from the ERP systems, can Docuwe call to the API program? It's a very broad question. Like I said, we can publish to the web service, we can update data. I can potentially have a very small application that does a specific call into the API, but I need to know how the API will receive data to do a call to it. So it's a very broad question. The answer is most probably true. Can you share documents with external people is the last question that I have here at the moment, and absolutely yes, you can. Through email, you can share a link to external people. If you're on an on-premise environment, you can have an unlimited read-only license. Back in the cloud environment, you just need to make sure that you've got user licenses, of course, for this kind of action, or you can share the actual specific document with those people. Right, guys, thank you for the questions. I think I'm taking too long with the questions considering it's a recording. I'm going to have to get marketing to edit a lot. Apologies for that. So briefly on specific partner integrations, I'm only going to cover one, but later in the presentation, I'll take you through a website. One that I use in my part of the world quite often is the Virto Suite for line items, also available, some more information available on our website. And the Virto Suite is quite impressive due to the fact that it currently some ERP systems are covered, but the technology allows us to connect to other systems. And the technology currently connects to a product that's very popular in the UK and in Africa, which is Syspro, and also integration into Sage, basically finished, if I understood developers correctly. which means that I can now do integration to a line item detailed level and posting information from an invoice directly to the ERP system. The Verto suite runs as a separate application and uses data used by retrieved by Docuwe from the document, like intelligent indexing and workflow actions where I am running exceptions based on data. So the Verto suite connects directly to the ERP system's database, fetches information based on the data captured, and then posts the accurate information back if a user had to do exceptions on that data, greatly reducing time spent by the employees and, of course, completely reducing errors. This is one example. I do have a short video on it as well that I'm going to play for you now. I hope the video works. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to test it over the line, but I'm sure it should be fine. Guys, I apologize. I just got the notification that there's no sound on the video. I apologize for that. I should have tested it before the time. The video is available on YouTube. And of course, if you want more information on the Verto suite, you are welcome to contact your regional sales director to get more information, to put you in contact with them. There's also information on the Docuwe website, which I will share shortly. Right, so I'm nearly done with the presentation. Then I'm going to field more questions that did hit the chat box. Firstly, there is some web pages. I'll leave them on the screen for now. Well, I'll leave them on the screen because that is my last slide. The integration page basically takes you through to a lot of the things that I've discussed today. There is even a list of all of the products that we have integrated with before, hundreds of them. The integration could only be web services or things like that. It's to give you an high-level idea of what is possible. There's also information there about strategic partner integrations. The Verto suite is on there. There's some information on Microsoft Dynamics integrations that we've done, and also information on Sage 100 integrations that we've done.